Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
In 2015, Ambika and Hoshner quit their jobs and set out to rediscover the country through planes, trains, and rickety old buses. What started as a break has now grown into a life of travel and discovery. On this podcast, they take you through the highlights of their journey. This is the reDiscovery Podcast.
In this episode, we take you to the Indo-China border, all the way in Arunachal Pradesh. So the first state we did was Arunachal when we started our road tripping around India. And we thought that, 3 to 4 weeks would be sufficient, which was, in hindsight, really silly. Not only is Arunachal huge, it's also got really, really bad roads. So getting anywhere takes, a day, 2 days sometimes to get from point A to point B. So we only managed to cover half the state in that time. But during our sojourn around Arunachal, we went all the way up to Tawang and the China border at Bumla.
So we were on the road for a few days at that point, and we were just getting into the whole scene in Arunachal. It's a lovely place. People are very nice. The scenery is just it's stunning. It's got these massive forests which are they really seem like old prehistoric forests, towering trees, and there are these banana plants which you don't expect to see in the hills in Arunachal, and each leaf is probably taller than a human being. So it was really a very different sort of landscape. Like Ambika said, the roads were really, really bad. So it takes forever to get anywhere. 100-kilometer odd journey could take you sometimes all day. It could take 6 hours, 7 hours.
And if there's a landslide, maybe it takes you 2 days.
Yeah. So Tawang was basically, distance-wise, it should have been a day's drive at best from Guwahati. But it took us over 2 days to get there. So we went via Bumla and Dirang. We made 2 night stops getting to Tawang.
Yeah, but we also did it kind of slow, take everything in. The roads are really bad, but the scenery is so mind-boggling. It sort of makes up for it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Makes up
it's
for
okay.
It's fine.
And to reach Tawang, you have to pass Sela Pass, which is one of the highest, one of the highest passes in Arunachal at 13,700 feet.
Yeah, it's quite high. And so we got there, and it was September when we were in Arunachal, and it's freezing up there. And the pass, most of the other passes in that range, there's no vegetation. So there's this wide road that you get to, and then there's a massive lake, which is really quite beautiful because you're on the top of the mountain at this pass, and you see you come over the mountain top down, and you see this huge lake which is reflecting the sky and everything. And then there's the army hut and a checkpoint which tells you at what height you're at and things. You can take a photo in front of it.
Sela.
Yeah. And then there's this other little hut where we encountered Momo Lady, whose name we actually don't know, so we should call her Momo Lady. And she had this little hut that sold, everything you needed when you were on the road.
And there was a place which we really, were happy to see at that time, because we'd been on the road probably for 6 hours by then, maybe a little less, and we were tired. It was cold. And her hut had a nice little warm chula in it.
Yeah, so we huddled around that, and then she made us some nice tea, and she had, you should make you Maggie if you want, or there was scores of biscuits and chips, but she was making fresh momos, and they were celery momos, which sound weird because who put celery in a momo? But she did, and they were so yummy. She had her mutku full, 2 levels of them, and between the 4 of us, so there was along with Hoshna, another friend, and our driver, we polished off her entire mutku of momos. So they were that yum. And something about this cold weather, I think, makes you just extra hungry.
Yeah, it was.
Eating all the time.
And they were awesome. The momos were very good. Celery momos.
So we spent a bunch of time with Momo Lady in her hut. She had her nephew who was very chatty and enterprising. So spent some time with them, and we were like, we have to stop here because to come back down again through Arunachal, we would have to come through Sela Pass. So we're like, great. More celery
you remember
momos.
she told us it was really cold up there, if you remember.
And this was only September.
And she said that they stay up there the whole year, except for a couple of months at the beginning of the year in Jan, Feb, when it gets really windy and cold. But besides that, they're up there the whole year. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, there's nobody else there other than the 2 guys in the army hut. So obviously they know Momo Lady as well.
So anyway, we did Momo Lady, and we headed up on our way towards Tawang, which was not very far, but it's Arunachal, so it still took forever to get there. And on the way, we were going along, and there were these people working in the side of the road, laborers basically making the road, all Arunachali ladies. And the way they work is very cool. They all have their kids who are strapped to their back in these little portalies. And they're doing hardcore construction work. They're breaking the road, they're digging.
Were being laid.
And their children are like with them happily. And one of them stopped us and asked, if we could give them a lift to whatever next village they had to go to. And we were like, yeah, sure, we are in a sumo, there are only 4 of us. Get on in. But they didn't get into the sumo, they got on top of the sumo. And then 1 got on, then 2 got on, then a few got on, and by the end of it there were, I think, 8 to 10 people either on top of the sumo or hanging on to the back of the sumo. One lady sat in the sumo with us because
she had a small baby.
She had a small baby with her, so she was the only one who accepted our invitation to sit inside. The rest of them all sat on top, and they seemed very comfortable.
Yeah, they were totally cool.
It was these terrible hilly roads, but they're like, you can hear them, having a gala time up there chatting, this, that, the other. And it's pretty crazy. It was fun.
Yeah, so we had these guests with us on the road for a couple of hours, and then so we get to Tawang and they got off on the way somewhere, and they were really very patient because we stopped a few times to take some photos, and they were like, yeah, we're just going to chill on the top of
we stopped for like 10 minutes
at a time,
and they never got off.
No, they never got off. They stayed there.
The roof, they're scared they'll lose their seat or something.
But so that happened. So then we get into Tawang. And Tawang's it's a nice little town. It's got a village feel, though it is a town. And there's this market area, which is the main market area, and there's all these little eating places and people playing carom. There were people playing carom everywhere.
All over
Arunachal, and people really love their carom.
And the carom is like a team sport. No? There are 10 people standing around a table, and everyone's giving suggestions and saying,
it's hardcore. It's hardcore about their carom over there. So, and then these roadside eateries. So we get there, and then in the evening we decide to go and venture into one of these eating places. And the thing about being all that far east is that the sun sets a lot earlier than you realize, and then it's really cold, so everything starts shutting down by like 7:30, 8 o'clock. I think everything started shutting down. But we found this one guy who was like, okay, we'll make you some food for that was Tak restaurant run by this guy named Dorji, who was really nice. I think we ended up eating at his place quite often after that. And he was like, I'm closing, but I don't have that much stuff, so I'll make you a tentuk. Which we were like, is it like thukpa? Because that's something we knew. But this tentuk, he's like, no, it's quite different. And it was really yummy. He had little pieces of meat, there was hot soup, and then there was little pasta pieces, and then there was vegetables.
Have you eaten tentuk anywhere else since then?
No, only in Arunachal.
Only there, no?
Yeah. It's a Arunachali
I think it's Tibetan.
Okay, maybe it's Tibetan also, but you don't get it in all the other Tibetan places, in like Sikkim or any of those places. So maybe it's that part of Tibet, Arunachal. So anyway, if you're in Tawang, definitely find Dorji and Tak restaurant and ask him to make you some tentuk. So perfect weather for like hot soupy meals, which we ate a lot of. Then there's all these other roadside places to eat. And so that was our introduction into Tawang.
Yeah, so most people come to Tawang basically to visit the monastery. Also, it's, I guess in Arunachal, it's kind of a hill station, so to speak, because it's pretty high up.
It's not a hill station. It's like a mountain top.
It's a mountain station.
Yeah. Hill station is like Lonavala.
It's fair. It's a mountain station. It's high up. It's cold. It's got lovely views around. And the monastery there is pretty epic. It's the second largest in Asia, and it's really old, built in the late 1600s, and it's sprawling. It's not like a small monastery there. There are probably like hundreds of monks who live there and practice, and it's got this lovely, large, majestic prayer hall with those typical gold statues of the Buddha you see towering over you. And
in the lotus position.
Yeah. And there's a monk who'll come and give you that white silk kapda because you've come to be blessed and things like that. It's very nice, very peaceful place. And it's got a lot of action happening around because, you have these tiny little monks who are running around the place, playing football.
And they're off time.
And they're carrying, vessels of food up and down. And they're doing work, you can make out. They're small, like they're up to your knee, but they're like fully vigorous and full action is happening. So it's a very interesting place to spend a few hours. You can just walk around. I mean, it's got all these sort of little lanes within the monastery itself where the housing and all the stuff of the monks is, and you can sort of walk around there. It's a pretty cool scene.
Yeah. So the monastery is definitely something that's a must see. And attached to the monastery, there is the museum as well, which has all these Tibetan artifacts. There's black and white photos of Tawang, Arunachal, of the present Dalai Lama. There's all these old scripts and scrolls in there, and little things that were brought over from Tibet and now are in the museum. I think a lot of other Buddhist museums around the country also have these artifacts that were brought into India from Tibet. And so we were looking around at these black and white photos of, Arunachal in India as it was 50, 60 years ago. And it was so cool because I saw a photo of my grandfather over there.
That was cool.
So that was really cool. It was the first time Nehru had come to that region, and my grandfather, who'd been stationed over there, he was in charge of Arunachal, which is what it used to be called Nifa earlier. So he was receiving Nehru. So there's this black and white photo of my Nana.
And we weren't sure it was him, right? And then
because he looked so young.
We took a photo of the photo and we sent it to your Nani.
To Nani
to check it out and see.
Yeah, so that was exciting. So they were all really excited in Delhi as well, which is where my grandparents live. So I mean, go check out the museum. It's a cool piece of history in the museum. So we did that one day, and then the next day we decided to go to Bumla.
Bumla is where the Indo-China border is, and it's not very far from Tawang. You got to take a lot of permissions to go there because it's a full army zone. You have to pass through a number of army checkpoints. So you got to go to the Tawang DC office, give them all your documents, the car has to be certified to go there, the driver has to be registered, all that kind of stuff. And that process usually will take you a few hours or even a day sometimes. So you do that on the first day you get to Tawang, and and so the next day you can go to Bumla.
Yeah, it's not difficult.
It's just
tedious.
a process.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to fill the form, and like Kostner said, wait a few hours because that's how the government works.
It goes from one place to the other, and
but they don't
get your pass or whatever.
Yeah, they don't deny entry to anyone. Even foreigners can go, so don't be worried about that if you are of a different nationality and want to visit Bumla. So,
but it's a must-do trip up to Bumla. Now, if the road up to Tawang is bad, beyond Tawang to get to Bumla, there's no road. And like I said, it's not far. It's probably about 30 kilometers odd.
Yeah, 30 to 40 kilometers.
Yeah, but it takes you at least 2 hours to do that.
At least
2 hours. And the road is only boulders.
And if you're traveling with a photographer, then it'll take you like 4 hours. Because you have to stop every 10 minutes. You don't even need to
stop because the car moves so slow, you can literally do whatever you want from the car itself.
Yeah, that's true. The road is bad.
But the view is epic. I mean, it's probably one of the most beautiful drives I have been on, personally.
Yeah, for sure. And we've now done quite a few drives around the country in different parts of the Eastern Himalayas, Western Himalayas.
What makes it special, I guess, to a large extent is in any direction you look when you're driving from Tawang to Bumla, you'll see a lake. And there are these beautiful sheets of water completely still reflecting the mountains, reflecting the glass. I mean, like a glass reflecting the stuff around. And there are 100 plus lakes in that region.
Yeah, Tawang the district is known as the district of lakes. And some of the smaller ones I remember, I mean, we'd see it and you didn't realize it was water for the first few seconds because it's so still and so clear that you see the reflection of, whatever, the shrubs or the flowers around, and you think, it's just an extension of the flowers, and then you're like, no, wait, there's a cloud in the middle of the flowers, so that can't be... so that has to be water then. So it's that beautiful and that pristine,
Yeah, so and there's so many of them.
There's so many. So
the well-known one there is
Madhuri
Lake.
Yes, named after the famous...
of course, Madhuri Dixit, because they apparently shot some song of some movie there.
Koila.
Yeah, whatever.
Some movie over
so we
there.
never ended up going there because there was just so many other lakes around, and that was like, oh, this is 12 kilometers. Yeah, it'll take 2 hours to go and come.
But it's a big tourist spot, because it's called Madhuri Lake. But I mean, you can just really pick any lake that you like and take a fancy for, hang out, carry a packed lunch if you want, and sit by any of these lakes. They're all just as stunning. Yeah. So we're driving towards the border area, and there's all these army checkpoints that you have to pass through. And I mean, you show them the form that you filled and the permit for the car and everything. So it's fine. I mean, it's not troublesome, but you have to stop and show them what you have, your document. And they're all extremely courteous and polite, and they're willing to chat. At one point, we had to stop at one of the checkpoints because there was people coming from the other side. So
there was a meeting. There was a meeting. The Chinese and the Indians at the border.
Right. So there was a meeting. So we had to wait till the meeting got over, and they invited us into their hut and gave us some tea. We sat there, and it was really cold outside, so we were really happy to sit inside the hut.
They were very nice about it,
Yeah, I mean, they were Punjabis. I remember the Punjab regiment was out there, so as always, they're little extra gregarious people. And despite the fact that they've been posted there for, I think, a couple of years, and it's cold. At least we were really cold. For them, it wasn't as cold because it gets colder later on.
Yeah, one of them had been posted in Siachen. And I remember asking him what it was like, and he said, "Sir, narak hai." That was his term.
Yeah, but I mean, in spite of all of that, they're super friendly, and you can hang out with them. There's another checkpoint where they have the canteen, and they welcome you to come and hang out with them in the canteen. You can have samosas that they make or other snacks. So
we had momos.
We had momos, and we had samosas also. I think it had been a while since we'd eaten a samosa. So definitely that's, most welcome to stop at these checkpoints and hang out with the army guys. So then you get to Bumla, and then you have to park your car, and then the last 100 meters or so you're escorted by a Jawan.
Yeah.
To what is the
line? LAC?
Yeah, the line of actual control. And that's where the border is.
Yeah, so that, I mean, it's an India-China border. You have all these ideas in your head of the Chinese doing incursions and things like that. But when you reach up there, it's nothing like what you probably imagine. There's no fencing. I had imagined like these high fences with, high voltage currency passing through them and all.
So they have these fences in Sikkim.
Yeah,
at
but
the
not
border.
here.
Yeah, not over here.
I mean, here you wouldn't even know it's a border. There were just a few milestones marking the fact that it was a border. There was a road going up to the border, and there was a big rock sitting at the border, which they call the Rock of Peace, and it's got like, this India-China's flags and names painted on it, and it's become a spot where you can take photos. And when you do take a photo, either off or with the Rock of Peace, you're technically standing in China.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool because the guy's like, oh, you're right now in China because the rock is half and half.
China at that point looks the same as India. It doesn't look any different.
Yeah, the landscape is the same. I mean, it's barren over there. There's no vegetation. And in the far distance from where we were, you can see the first Chinese checkpost.
Yeah, you can just see a blue tarp basically. Unless you look, they have a pair of binoculars there. You can actually look through them. And you can see the first Chinese checkpost,
Yeah, and then there's China. So that's really cool, and it's very peaceful, and it's very like Kosha said, nothing like you would expect. So that's kind of a nice experience. And then the guys over there will explain to you what happens. They've got this hall that they've constructed with pictures of activities that happen, and at least like 5 or 6 times a year they have these joint cultural events
with the Chinese,
right? So they'll celebrate Indian Independence Day, they celebrate Chinese New Year, then they celebrate Diwali, whatever other festivals are important to the Chinese.
Imagine the Indian Jawans and the Chinese dancing together.
Yeah, and they have all these things, and we saw the photos of it. So it's really like it seems like a much more peaceful place than what one hears about.
Correct.
And I think these activities, at least that's what we heard,
they go a long way towards keeping the peace.
Yeah. And then it keeps communication open, and then the villagers from both sides are welcome to come and attend these activities. So they meet each other, and there's this, you learn more about what is supposedly on the other side. So that's really, I mean, it's a wonderful experience, and my grandfather was in the army, and so you kind of feel a little bit sense of pride also that these guys are here, and you're like, okay, thanks for for doing the job that you're doing. And
they give you a certificate.
Yeah, they give you a really nice certificate that you
Bumla
were there.
And that was the first border we had visited as part of the reDiscovery project. And I think subsequently now we've done
5 borders.
5 borders.
Yeah, we've done 5 borders. So that's exciting. We've got a few more to go, but we've done the 5. So yeah, definitely make a trip up to Bumla if you're in Arunachal, or just, go up to Arunachal, up to Tawang, and make that trip. You can spend a few days chilling in Tawang. There are hot springs also to go to. But the best time to go to these hot springs are the dead of winter, so that's like December, Jan. So if you're brave enough to go up there,
balls to do that.
then
because even
go
in
right
September
ahead.
It was really cold.
Yeah, but either which way, Arunachal is like a photographer's paradise, I think. I mean, I'm not even a photographer. Hoshner's a photographer here, but it's stunning. It's like all these images you want to capture and keep forever. So if you want to see our photos of Arunachal, Bumla, and our journey in that region, you can go to our website. That's www.reDiscoveryproject.com. There's also lots of other stories about our travels around India. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Well, thanks for listening.
Happy travels.
Next week in the season finale of the reDiscovery podcast, we take you to the village of Bhandadara to see the phenomenon of the fireflies.
The reDiscovery podcast is an Indus Vox Media production. If you like listening to this podcast, check out their entrepreneurial podcast, My Neighbor Zuckerberg, where Munaf Kapadia and Nabil Merchant talk to like-minded entrepreneurs about their struggles and successes. New episodes every Monday.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out
IVM Podcasts
to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.